Hi everyone, so I'm gonna do a super fast, super quick intro to how to use or how to get the most out of the brush engine. And I'm speaking super fast because I just did this intro and I had to delete it because the subtool view wasn't showing and yeah, it's poop. Anyway, for this cloud brushes, I just want to mention a couple things from the brush engine that if you may not know how to use them, it'll prevent you or it'll hold you back from getting the most out of the brushes, which are absolutely amazing. So one of the first things I want to mention about in this cloud brushes from Blaise is the fact that we have something called gap, right? So I think that's you can pretty much tell what the gap means. It's how far away each image stamp is separated from the next image stamp as you draw. So here's the default value of the brush. So you'll see this, and now let's go to the gap, and I'm gonna increase it by a lot, and now you're gonna just instantly see what I mean by gap. See how without me just doing the same stroke, now the image, like the actual image stamps appear farther from each other. Now if I close up the gap, look how much, obviously it's going to be a lot harder to render because you're getting hundreds of more image stamps than in the regular one. And now if you decide that you've messed up the brush and you kind of want to go back and you're like, oh man, what do I do? Just go to your tool property window, which you can access by going to window and then tool property, and then to the left of the wrench icon, there's going to be a little circle thingamajig. Just click on it and it'll reset you back to the default settings for your brush and you can just continue doing your awesome cloud paintings. So next up would be the one that I'm most interested about, which is, well actually no, I'm just going to go before that. I'm going to go to brush size. I just picked another one. Brush so I can tell you about it. So with the brush size, you usually know that there's pen pressure involved. So the harder you press, the bigger the image stamp is going to be. The lighter you press, the smaller it's going to be. Now, if you go here to the brush size, you'll also notice it's got a random option selected. That means that as you do your stroke, when depending on what the value and the minimum value is, when your image stamp reaches a value of 55, that means that the brush engine has the right of way to randomize a little bit the the size of your brush so that it looks more natural. You can turn it off by just going click here, and in the pen pressure you also have the minimum value, which states that no matter how light you press, your brush will always be a size of 32% of the number that you have up here. So if you also don't want that, that means that you want to make the brush as small as you freaking want, just move it to 0. And then the lightest pressure, see how tight, look, you can barely see it. Now if I go here and I put the minimum value again, the same pressure renders, see? That's the minimum value. You can do whatever you want, just just so you know that you have access to this in case you want it. Um, you also notice that there's opacity. The opacity has minimum value 0, and if you notice that you like the opacity of the cloud to be a little more opaque without putting so much pressure on, just pull up the curve, and you'll see that it's more opaque with less pressure. You guys can do whatever you want with your brushes. They're extremely um, powerful with all the options you have with the engine from Clip Studio Paint. So, go wild. Okay, last one is going to be the one that I'm super most interested about, which is the group brushes. So you're gonna notice when you have your brushes into the Clip Studio Paint that some of them have the name group, like this one, Cloud Group 2, and you'll be like, what do you mean by group? So it just means that you're gonna get a lot of stamps based on one stroke, and you're like, why would I want that? That looks terrible. No cloud looks like this. Well, actually, yeah, that does look like a nice sky. But one of the reasons Aaron included this brush, it's super cool, is to give texture. So for example, say you have this weird shaped cloud, and then we're going to go to the group 2. We're going to get shadow, a little bit darker and up here. And then you're going to be like, yeah, yeah, look at that. Look at that shadow. Look at that texture on my cloud. Yeah, look at it. And then you can get this, and then you can change it to something super bright, and then you got the light. And instantly you have a textured, obviously if you did it with much more care than my brush strokes that I'm doing right now, it'll look a lot nicer. But there you go. They're for texturing clouds. They're the reason why it's called group is because you're gonna get a whole bunch of image stamps. But you'll notice that when you make the brush bigger, huh, the image stamp size does not change. And you're like, that's strange. I'm making my brush bigger. So let's make it smaller. Huh, the image stamps is still the same side, but there's clearly a difference. Here, the image stamps are farther apart from each other, both in both axes. And when the brush is small, that distance has suddenly become quite short, and they're like all scrunched up in a line. That's because I'm using an option in the engine called spray effect. That means it's spraying the image stamp as you do the brushstroke. So there's various things that control this. First thing to know is that the brush size, that means when you have that circle, you see the circle going up and down. This does not does not affect whatsoever the size of the image stamp. What it does affect is the area in which the image stamp is drawn. So if you make it really big, like this, um, I think I'm gonna need to draw a circle so I can actually draw on that. One second. So if we make a brush as big as sort of plus, and there you go, something like that, right? You'll notice that when I start drawing, the clouds are only going to appear within this circumference, right? That's what the brush size is controlling when the spray effect is activated. See how the image stamp is scattered, but it always stays within that circumference? Let's do that in a different way. Let's make the circumference smaller. Now you'll notice that the brush will only appear within my new circumference, yeah? That's the only thing that the brush size affects when the spray effect is activated. Just the circumference or the area in which the image stamp is drawn. So another way of putting it is, imagine, look how big my brush is, right? I'm going to do one stroke. You see how far apart they are? Now imagine you want to do like a really tight line using that image stamp. So we are going to decrease the area. Look how tight they are. Now, there is a setting that controls how far away. So when you have the circle, when you have your brush circumference, you see there's a little dot in the center, right? Like this. Well, like this. That so the how much how do I say this? How far, sorry, how far away each image stamp is drawn from the center of your circle is determined by the spray deviation setting. So spray deviation, as you can see in the tool property, changes the how far away the, they're drawn into the center of the line. I think it's much better seen rather than me explaining it in such a weird way. So right now, my spray deviation states that I want very little spray deviation, right? I want it to be as close to the center of my circle as possible. So that means when I make it, see? So it stays within that. Now, let's say I want like all the deviation possible. That means yeah, go all out. That's they're all over the place. Here's with zero spray deviation. Here's with control spray deviation. See how they're more bunched up even though the circumference is big? And here they're all over the place with the same brush size. That's the difference. That's it. So you guys can do whatever you want in regards to that. But I just want you to know what it's there for in case you need it. So if you want more sprayed out image stamps. Now, the other question is, what do I do with the actual size of the image stamp, because like I'm here drawing and I'm not going to be drawing this size texture every time. That's ridiculous. I need to be able to change it. And if the brush size doesn't change that, how am I going to get that image stamp to be smaller? The answer is the configuration named by particle size. So particle size is actually what changes the size of the image stamp, or in this case, as the engine has labeled it, the particle. So if you want really tiny textures, just make that small. Tiny. Pretty little tiny. You want them super big? Just increase that. Super big. That's it. So instead of just the only thing I want you to keep that I want you to take away from this really incredibly fast-paced introduction is that brush size affects the area in which the particles are sprayed on, and particle size affects the actual size of the particle. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, bye. No, I'm just kidding. That's it. That's pretty much it. Now, if you're the kind of person that thinks or wants more stuff in the tool property, because I've hidden a lot of stuff from here that I didn't think you might want to tweak as you paint. You can always put more of the brushes configurations in this ready to access window by going to you see that the wrench here. If you click on it, you're gonna get the sub tool view. So just let me turn it on my OBS thing. See, there you go. Now you see it. So in this wonderful tool property window, whenever you want a new property to be part of your brush, all you have to do is make sure it's ticked. So if I untick brush size, if you look over to the tool property, it's not there anymore. Say that suppose you always change your brush size based on keyboard shortcuts. So you don't want it wasting space here. So you come here and you take it off. But then you refresh. Imagine if you refresh and it comes back again because it's part of the default settings. You're like, man, that's really annoying. Well, you can always come here, remove it, and then you can click something called Save All Settings as Default. Beware that the moment that you click this button, you're going to be overriding the default settings of your brush. What does that mean? That means that if you ever hit the refresh button again, it's going to go back to whatever you're saving at the state of the brush right now. So imagine that I've removed my brush size and I do save all settings as default. I've actually clicked it. For most people, when you click this, if you haven't been messing around with Clip Studio Paint, you're gonna get a nice, convenient dialog box that says, "Hey, are you sure you want to do this? Just click yes." I got tired because I mess with so many brushes. I got tired of that, and I just simply removed the dialog box from my setup. I don't know how to get it back, and I don't want it. So imagine you do save all settings as default. Now it doesn't matter if I like change everything. When I hit refresh, the brush size property doesn't appear anymore. Okay, and I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure that is it, guys. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and let you see how I've put the cloud brushes to test by following Aaron Blaise's cloud tutorial. I followed along, as in like I put it up on YouTube and I just did as he did in real time, but I had to pause the video a whole bunch of times because I'm not that fast. So just so you guys can see how these brushes perform in Clip Studio Paint. I absolutely love them. I haven't mastered them completely because there's a lot of things you can do with them. Um, but they are very cool. So I hope you can have fun with them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching, and I hope you draw lots of pretty clouds, guys. Uh, boy, I didn't remove the sub view, the tool property. Yeah, you're seeing all that stuff because the OBS messed up. Let me remove it. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I'm not gonna redo this video. It's gonna stay like that. Thank you. Bye.